a virtual training collection by Kaleidoscope Youth Center. In this series, we dive headfirst into identities that don't get their fair share of the limelight. Hi there, I'm Amanda, and my pronouns are she, her.
I'm Lane, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Daria, my pronouns are she, they.
We have to walk before we run, so we're digging into some foundational concepts in this video. Before we get into identities, let's talk about the philosophy of the gender binary. We're going to start our gender binary discussion by reflecting on gender messages. What gender messages did you receive from folks while growing up? Before we begin, I have two notes. First, in this activity, we're going to consider gender as a whole concept. We're not necessarily getting into the specifics of LGBTQIA+ identities yet. This is just broadly about gender. Second, before you say, we didn't talk about it, I want you to challenge yourself to think a little bit deeper. Many of us didn't have conversations about gender, but we did receive messages, whether they were nonverbal messages, role modeling, or things we heard folks around us say to other people. Those messages happened. So the first question is, what gender messages did you receive while growing up from your parents or caregivers? Again, thinking about role modeling, nonverbals, things they may have said to each other that you overheard. Take a minute to think about the messages that you may have received, jot down some notes, and chat together as a group.
When I was growing up, my room was pink, and my brother's room was blue when he was born, before we even knew what our favorite colors were.
Before you were born?
Yeah.
Wow.
In my family, the women served meals and did the dishes, and the men sat on the couch.
That was just role modeled, like, as the way things were done.
Mm-hmm.
Mine too. My dad wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, and my mom was like, no, I'll be a stay-at-home mom, you work.
So I grew up in a single mom home and with a sister, and so it was just women. And so I think those messages were a little bit different from other people. Like, I mowed the lawn, and there weren't necessarily gendered expectations, but then at the same time, like, I remember being put into a flowery, lacy, itchy dress that I had absolutely no interest in wearing, but that was just the way that things were done. Did you all, like, play with certain toys that were gendered or, like, provided to you?
I had both Barbie and Ken dolls, and my sister ripped the head off of all my Ken dolls.
Did your brother have different toys?
Well, one time he had an Ariel doll, and he's now 34 years old, and he still talks about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother was really into, like, computery things, so, like, but that's all they would ever get him. But whenever, like, me and my sister were playing with our little, like, I don't even remember what they're called, like, the little hamster toys that, like, they run around, I don't know. Like, he'd want to play with us, but, like, he didn't have any. Like, they were my sister and I's, and, like, he just had his little robot things, and, like, that was it.
Wow. So when we do this activity with folks, a lot of the common answers are boys will be boys, girls like the color pink, like Daria's walls. My parents gave me, a girl, different rules, chores, or expectations than they gave my brother. Sometimes people talk about different curfews being given to themselves versus their brothers. The message, children can and should play with whatever toys they want. Or the message, you can be whatever you want when you grow up. Consider how those messages, or the ones that you thought about, might have affected you in your childhood. The second question is very similar, but now I want to ask you about your peers. These are the people who are around the same age as you, your siblings and cousins, your classmates, teammates, other kids on the playground. Consider your kindergarten peers and your high school peers and all of the different messages you may have received about gender in general.
In high school, I was the only assigned female at birth person in my Physics 2 class.
Huh. Out of how many students?
8.
I'll take that to college and say in college there was only one male in my graduating class of early childhood education majors.
I had a similar experience when I was in school and I was still doing education. It was mostly women, specifically like very feminine women. And the only times that there were like specifically middle school aged, or like people that wanted to teach middle school, any of the guys were like, oh, I want to coach. So like that's why they wanted to be in education. Like, I want to coach. And I'm like, that is not the right reason to be a teacher. Anyways, like elementary and middle school, it was kids getting bullied on based on like their haircut. So like if there were boys with long hair, it was always like, you look like a girl, you should braid your hair. And then if it was girls that had short hair, they're like, ooh, why do you want to be a boy?
I remember in high school, one of my friends taught a bunch of girls how to wear makeup. And like it was a specific expectation that like we would all just start wearing makeup, and it wasn't an option to just not, or to not like put a lot of emphasis and care into your appearance and making your appearance very feminine.
In elementary school, there was a boy in my class who would cry frequently, and he got bullied and called a crybaby.
A lot of common answers when folks think about their peers are boys don't cry, girls can't play sports, if girls date a lot of boys, that's a bad thing, but if boys date a lot of girls, that's a good thing. And then finally, what gender messages did you receive while you were growing up from the media? The media could be what you saw on TV, the commercials in between TV shows, what you saw in the movies, the previews before the movies, magazines that your family received, magazines you saw in the checkout aisle of the grocery store, billboards, posters, books. What kind of gender messages did you absorb from these sources?
That girls were always like a damsel in distress that needed saving, and that men were always so big and strong and they'd come in and like solve all of her problems.
She had to have Prince Charming.
Always. He's not even cute.
I remember being in the Kroger checkout line a lot and reading tabloids about Oprah's weight cycling.
Oh.
Yeah, it's always talking about Oprah's body.
Yeah. Huh. I always remember the commercials on like Nickelodeon in the 90s. That would be like a commercial for Barbies or some other doll that everything was super pink and clean, and a bunch of little girls inside in like a pink bedroom, everything very lacy and frilly and sparkly clean, and girls playing with their Barbies. And then it would be followed immediately by like a Big Wheels commercial or some other commercial for what was considered a boy's toy, that they were all like outside getting muddy, like rough and tumble, quote unquote boys being boys, and how it was very clear from that marketing to children on a children's network that there was one type of toy that you were supposed to want based on your gender.
When I was a young kid, I would stay home with my mom on days that I didn't have preschool, and at lunch she would watch The Young and the Restless, and it would be just the women's entire lives was their love interest in the drama involved with that.
Yeah, you mentioning the commercials made me think of, I'm thinking of specifically like the Easy Bake Ovens or whatever, and like I can't picture a commercial that had boys in it. It was always like two little girls like having a tea party and like using the Easy Bake Oven.
Imagine seeing a little boy in an Easy Bake Oven commercial. Like, but how cool would that have been for us?
Yeah. Well, because like my brother, we had an Easy Bake Oven.
Uh-huh.
My brother loved the Easy Bake Oven, but like he wasn't in it. I loved Hot Wheels, but I don't remember seeing any girls in the Hot Wheels commercials.
Yeah. So common answers for the media include there's a right way and a wrong way for both women and men to look. There are boys' toys and there are girls' toys. Women are more focused on family while men are more focused on business. Maybe we look back at some of those sitcoms or other TV shows that model for us what a family is supposed to look like. So now consider, were any of these questions easier or more challenging to answer? If you're watching this segment independently, ask your family and friends some of these questions. You might be surprised by what you hear. Alok Vaid Menon writes in their book, Beyond the Gender Binary, We divide millions of people into one of two categories and tell them that this is the way things are. We emphasize and exaggerate the differences between these categories and minimize the similarities that exist between them. We forget that there is more variety within the categories of women and men than between them. We forget the ways in which we once deviated from the norm. We forget that humans have never perfectly aligned with these norms. And yet, this happens every day, every minute, every second, and we pretend that this is just the way things are, and sometimes even that this is the way things should be. Is it the way things have always been, though? While the words non-binary, genderqueer, and gender fluid might be relatively new, living beyond the gender binary is not. Indigenous communities around the world have long recognized that gender and sex are not the same, and identified third, or even fourth or fifth, genders within their societies. A third gender can be found in Hindu holy texts like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and many third gender people were revered through history in both Hindu and Muslim traditions in South Asia. The most common group now are the Hijras, most of whom are intersex, and some of whom identify as transgender. Hijras generally leave home to join the Hijra community, where they learn Hindu rituals such as blessings for births and weddings. The Waria people of Indonesia embrace fluidity between gender, body, and personal identity, and are often local leaders working as priests, shamans, and mediums. The Mushes of Oaxaca, Mexico, are a recognized third gender that are part of its culture and traditions. They keep traditional dress, the Zapotec language, and other traditions that are not necessarily as well maintained in the rest of their community. Two-spirit is a modern umbrella used by people indigenous to North America to describe people who carry both a masculine and a feminine energy. According to HuffPost, two-spirit people were honored members of their tribes and occupied roles such as visionary, artist, healer, matchmaker, counselor, and warrior. These individuals often carried out duties that were traditionally assigned to both men and women. We'll have a whole video just about two-spirit identities soon.
If you want more information on the Hijra, Waria, Mushe, and Two-Spirit folks, take a look at the information linked in our course page.
According to Alok, it's not that these people do not exist, it's that they have been erased to make the Western gender binary seem like the only option, and not a particular and specific cultural worldview. What's regarded as masculine and feminine is not set in stone, but actually shifts across time, culture, and space. Even in the Western world, pink was once considered a masculine color, and heels were actually first worn by men. For many people, it's confusing to be told that there are more than two genders. That's because we've been brought up in a way that has told us that the gender binary is the only way. The gender binary has told us that there are two genders, male and female, and that everyone must box themselves into one of those two labels. Messages about the gender binary, including the messages you just thought about in our warm-up activity, have been around us all the time, our whole lives. We're color-coded from birth, assigned roles and expectations based on the body parts we had when we were born. Much of learning about gender and sexuality is actually about unlearning the assumptions and stereotypes that have been impressed upon us throughout our lives, and that can be a huge challenge. As you move through more mini-courses, if you feel resistant to any particular ideas or concepts, consider what assumption or stereotype might need to be unlearned in order to welcome a new idea. If you found this mini-course helpful, check out some of our others on topics like sexual identity, asexuality, or intersex. Invite KYC out to facilitate a live training, and visit our website to learn more about our programs. Visit kycohio.org/donate to make a one-time donation, or join our Unity Circle. Your contributions will help KYC continue to serve LGBTQIA+ young people in our community.